Marvel is one of the most popular, lucrative, and successful media organizations on the planet today. Its comics, movies, characters, and merchandise are some of the most read, watched, beloved, and purchased in the world. You may think, therefore, that the company's entire history is all sweetness and light, but that's not actually the case. Marvel has experienced many lows, just like pretty much any other organization tends to have. This video will run you through just a few of them, so sit back, relax, and enjoy it. But don't forget to subscribe to our channel to watch more like it in the future. Here are 10 shocking secrets Marvel would not want you to know about. And before we start, can you guess this movie from these emojis? Stay tuned for the answer at the end of our video.
You alright with that there shield?
Could use a little more time to practice.
Their movies used to be awful. If you're still fairly young, or even if you're not, you may not realize that Marvel have been making feature-length movies long before the MCU's inception and the current crop of Marvel movies. The problem is, they were absolutely awful. A feature-length Doctor Strange movie was made in 1978 as a pilot for a proposed TV series that didn't happen because the film was awful. 1986's Howard the Duck is one of the worst comic book movies ever made. 1989's The Punisher went direct-to-video, and a cheap and nasty version of Captain America was released in 1990. Moreover, in 1994, a Fantastic Four movie was made that was so bad, it wasn't even released at all. And there are a number of other horrendous early Marvel movies too.
Do you think I could be president of the United States someday?
They almost made some even worse movies. Now, you may think that a movie featuring a cheaply made Howard the Duck puppet was as bad as it could get for Marvel. And you might be right. But on a number of occasions, they very nearly ended up making movies that had every chance of being even worse. A few examples of Marvel movies that nearly were included a She-Hulk movie starring Bridget Nielsen, a Silver Surfer musical scored by Paul McCartney and featuring Olivia Newton-John in an important role, a Wolverine movie starring Bob Hoskins, and a Spider-Man movie in which Spidey would literally have been a human tarantula hybrid. Seriously, they really all almost happened.
I'm sorry I stole the suit.
They steal character ideas from DC. Now, granted, this actually works both ways. DC and Marvel have used each other's characters to inspire their own on many occasions, but Marvel are undoubtedly the worst offenders. A few examples are as follows. Thanos was influenced by Metron and Darkseid, Deadpool was influenced by Deathstroke, Moon Knight was influenced by Batman, the Nova Corps were influenced by the Green Lantern Corps, Mr. Fantastic was influenced by Elongated Man, Hawkeye was influenced by Green Arrow, and there are many, many more that we haven't mentioned.
Eggshell shield.
They treated Stan Lee and Jack Kirby terribly for a while. Stan Lee and the late Jack Kirby are undoubtedly the two most important people in Marvel's history. Together, they created the likes of Spider-Man, Hulk, the X-Men, Captain America, and the Fantastic Four. But Marvel didn't always give them the credit they deserved for it. Marvel claimed that, because Lee and Kirby created those characters while working as their employees, they had no rights to them. But the pair understandably wanted their share of the profits when the characters became popular. Bitter legal battles ensued, lasting for years, until Lee eventually worked something out and is now heavily involved with Marvel to this day. Kirby died in 1994, however, so his situation wasn't resolved so easily. His family fought Marvel for years without a resolution until 2014, when Marvel and Kirby's family reached an undisclosed settlement, and Marvel released a statement acknowledging Kirby's huge contribution to the company throughout his life.
Earth's mightiest heroes pulled us apart like cotton candy.
The Avengers Age of Ultron cast threatened to quit. Marvel Studios are known to have had unsettled relationships with a number of their MCU cast members. Edward Norton and Terrence Howard were both replaced in the franchise after disputes with the studio, while the likes of Natalie Portman, Mickey Rourke, and Hugo Weaving are known to have not enjoyed some of their experiences with them. But the more established crop of actors almost had a falling out with them too. The production of 2015's Avengers Age of Ultron was actually in jeopardy when the likes of Robert Downey Jr., Scarlett Johansson, and Chris Hemsworth threatened not to show up for the movie unless the salaries they were originally offered were dramatically increased. Of course, the increase did eventually occur, and the actors did appear in the movie, but Marvel wouldn't want you to know what almost happened.
I will be reinstituting Prima Nocta.
Their comics used to be very sexist. Some would argue to this day that Marvel are somewhat sexist, given the distinct lack of titular female superheroes to date in their cinematic universe. But back in the day, some of their comic books were sexist in hugely inappropriate ways. There have been scenes in which the Thing wanted to spank Sue Storm. Ant-Man used to regularly domestically abuse the Wasp. Some of the female characters' costumes were shockingly inappropriate, and as recently as 2010, Marvel launched a series of female-centric comics called Girl Comics. Because, you know, girls can't read comics unless they're totally feminine. Well, that last bit was sarcasm.
Call me old-fashioned.
They've published some truly awful titles. As we've previously mentioned, Marvel are responsible for some of the most iconic comic book titles in history, but they've also published some horrendous titles that they'd really rather everyone forgot about. 2005's romance comic Trouble, 1991's NFL Super Pro comic, a Billy Ray Cyrus comic, a comic starring rap group Onyx, and, of course, the infamous swimsuit issues.
Are you on my team?
Just represent, pull. All right, let's go.
They turned down the option to own DC. It's hard to imagine it now, but back in 1984, the comic book industry was in trouble. Sales were extremely low, and absolutely nobody wanted to see superheroes on the big screen. Noting that Marvel was doing better than DC, however, the head of Warner Communications approached Marvel about the possibility of them purchasing the publishing rights to DC Comics. Editor-in-chief Jim Shooter declined the offer, suggesting DC's characters just weren't very good or interesting. We bet that's a decision the company regrets massively, even if they're not prepared to publicly admit it.
I'm trying to keep you from tearing the Avengers apart.
They once filed for bankruptcy. Given that Marvel is now a media powerhouse, you'd be forgiven for thinking they've ever been in any serious financial trouble. But the fact is, they once filed for bankruptcy. Between 1993 and 1996, stocks in the company plummeted from more than $35 per share to a mere $2. All Marvel could do in response was file for bankruptcy. They were at the stage where they were selling their own office equipment to gather funds. But thankfully for the company and its fans, they merged with Toy Biz and turned their attention to making the movies you know today, which resulted in a major change in their fortunes. The rest, as they say, is history.
If I lift it, I then rule Asgard?
Yes, of course.
Michael Jackson tried to buy them. Back when the late Michael Jackson was throwing money around for fun in the 1980s, he bought the entire Beatles back catalog for Christ's sake. He actually attempted to buy Marvel Comics. The controversial King of Pop approached Stan Lee for his help, and Lee was actually willing, but the former Marvel president and chairman wasn't in charge of the company at the time, and Jackson's bid failed. Moreover, Jackson wanted to play Spider-Man in a Marvel movie, and rather crazily, lobbied extremely hard to play Charles Xavier in the first X-Men movie in 2000.
This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Thanks for watching our video about 10 shocking secrets Marvel would not want anyone to know. Can you think of any other secrets Marvel would like to keep from everyone? And the answer to the movie emoji is... Did you get the right answer? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Screen Rant for more fun videos like this one.